Inclusive teaching, supporting all students in the college classroom. What is universal design for learning?
The idea of universal design was established in the 1950s to encourage architects to design homes and public spaces that were usable by everyone to the greatest extent possible. These design changes help people with disabilities, but also many other people.
That's right. Think about the ways in which a curb cut, which allows people using wheelchairs or walkers to easily access the sidewalk, also helps people with children in strollers and people pushing grocery carts. If space is designed from the beginning to reduce as many obstacles as possible, it would be more welcoming for everyone, regardless of their individual need or ability level. Using universal design principles also helps to avoid making costly and difficult modifications to improve accessibility after the fact.
The same logic applies when we consider universal design for learning in our classrooms. If we proactively use universal guidelines from the beginning, it will make the learning experience more positive for all students and prevent us from having to make reactive accommodations later. For example, closed captioning on videos not only helps people who have hearing impairments, but can also help people who are developing their language skills. Similarly, having modular furniture in a classroom helps those students who use a wheelchair or other mobility devices, but can also make group work easier to accommodate for all students.
Creating with universal design in mind means that you're not just continually making one change, one time for one person at the request of someone with an accessibility challenge. This is because you've already considered the level of accessibility for a diverse range of people at the outset.
The typical approach that institutions use for providing access to students with disabilities is accommodations. What that means on a typical campus is a student would disclose their disability to the Disability Services Office, request an accommodation. They'd have to provide the documentation that is necessary by that institution to get a reasonable accommodation. And then that office would tell a faculty member what accommodations have been approved for that student. Universal design, on the other hand, is rather than being reactive, it's proactive. And so it's designing a product or an environment to be usable by anyone without the need for adaptation or specialized design. For example, if you're using videos in your class and you have a student who is deaf and requires captions, if they aren't on the video already, then they will have to have them captioned quickly so they can keep up with the rest of the class. Imagine for a minute, though, if you just simply captioned all of your videos. Then you wouldn't have to provide the accommodation for that student. And you'd also find that that captioning benefited a lot of other students too, including English language learners and people that just want to see the spelling of the words in the video. Sometimes I hear from faculty members that they don't have any students with disabilities in their classroom. And I remind them that just because they don't get a letter from the Disability Services Office, it doesn't mean that you don't have students with disabilities in your classroom. Actually, fewer than a third of students with disabilities actually register in that office and request accommodations. And then they often wonder, well, why don't they go over there and register and get accommodations? Well, there are a lot of reasons for that. It's a personal decision, first of all, and they may not want to register because they don't want you to know that they have a disability because they are concerned about discrimination or that you might have low expectations for them. But universal design benefits those students even if they don't disclose their disabilities and allows them a level of privacy, which I think is a good thing, that they don't have to disclose their disability to get access to things. When you think about it, they should just be able to expect that they can access your course. We allow students with disabilities in our campus and have done that for many, many years. So why are we so surprised when one of them shows up in our classes and scramble around and try to make things accessible? We should just expect that they're coming. And that's what universal design is all about. Typical design is for the average student. You think, well, the average student in my class is in their 20s and this and that. Universal design takes a different look at the student body that's in your class and looks at the diversity and looks at the individuals at the margins. So what is the full range of capabilities of people that might be in my class? And how can I make my class so that they can all equally participate?
One of the things that happens when you start doing something for a disability reason is that other people sort of realize ways that that might work for them. And I have a really specific example that I can share with you. I had a student come to me at the beginning of the semester, this was years ago, and she explained that she had chronic fatigue syndrome, and that, usually she would be in class, but it was unpredictable when she would have an attack or something and just be unable to come to class. And she just wanted me to know. She wasn't asking for anything. She just wanted me to know. And my university, at the same time, had been rolling out this option of faculty recording the classes automatically. So there were microphones in all the rooms, and you could just contact IT and say, my class that meets at this time in this building, I would like to have it recorded. And then a student could log in and access the recording of the class. Now, because I do a lot of group work and a lot of my classes is like chaos, but I tend to, at the beginning and the end of class, I will start with, here's my introduction, here's what we're doing today, here's the homework, and then I review that at the end of class. So at the very least, students can log in and hear that. And so I signed up for it because of this one student. Where it was like, oh, well, I just heard about this and maybe this would be helpful. But then it became a huge resource, right? Because I could point students who needed to miss class for any reason. I could say, please use this and, kind of catch up on what I said about the homework. I'm happy to follow up and talk to you. But it helped me reduce the number of what did I miss in class emails, right? So there's all kinds of ways that we get creative with the space and with the resources when we try, when we sort of see what happens when. And this was actually something that I had resisted doing because I felt like, well, I can't verify the recording, right? Because they're not captioned, so these are things that I can't go online and listen and make sure it's working. But I had to just kind of take that. It was really important to me that I not just tell the student, oh, wow, too bad, that sucks, right? That I wanted to be able to meet her somewhere in the middle. And I think there's lots of things that are possible when you start trying to see, okay, what happens when? What happens if? And it's a shift that you may be making because one student asks for it, but then you see benefits unfold in other ways that you might not expect.